Acting Cabinet Media spokesperson Minister Anura Priyadarshana Yapa says the government hopes to find a solution to the national issue by uniting all parties through a select committee. The minister made this statement during the Cabinet Media briefing today.
The government is of the view that a solution can be found through a select committee which consists of all political parties. The President had stated that he would prefer a solution which would be arrived at through such a process.
What happened to the Tissa Vitarana committee which discussed the national issue for 3 years?
The Parliamentary Select Committee will be able to discuss all of this.
The TNA has made a statement that they will not attend this.
No, they haven't said any such thing. Our government is of the view that this should go through a select committee. No, what they are saying is not fair. I cannot accept that. Who can we talk about the national issue other than the political parties?
What is the president's stance? What is 13 plus? The Indian foreign minister, when he was leaving the country, said,
The president spoke of a solution which goes beyond the 13th Amendment on a number of occasions. Our government's stance is that in order for this to be solved, it should go through a select committee. Here we can discuss this. You're with the news first. Up next is a look at Action TV.
The Ministry of Fisheries has so far failed to open a line of communication with the Somali pirates to secure the release of 6 Sri Lankan fishermen who are being held hostage. It is in this backdrop that the Somali pirates continue to issue threats via telephone to the families of the fishermen. With the deadline given by the Somali pirates, who are demanding $6 million for the release of the 6 Sri Lankan fishermen, looming closer, the family members of the fishermen are in despair with the lives of their loved ones on the line. Since the pirates are not responding to any telephone number except the few telephone numbers used by the relatives of the 6 Sri Lankan fishermen, a special representative from the World Fisheries Solidarity met the relatives of the fishermen today with the hope of communicating directly with the Somali pirates if the pirates telephoned once again. However, the pirates have not contacted the relatives today, while attempts made by the families of the 6 fishermen to contact the pirates were unsuccessful up to 6 p.m. this evening. Using his organization's connections, the special representative of the World Fisheries Solidarity has been attempting to secure the release of these 6 fishermen.
We are not hoping to hand over responsibilities solely to the government. There are several organizations in South Africa that have connections with us. We are already holding discussions with these organizations and organizations in Uganda to see how these organizations can intervene. We are doing all of this on behalf of these families. Provide us with the necessary assistance for this process.
The Ministry of Fisheries announced yesterday that Sri Lanka's High Commissioner in South Africa has been instructed to take necessary measures to secure the release of the fishermen. The many attempts made by News First to contact a responsible authority at the Sri Lankan High Commission in South Africa proved futile. When News First contacted the High Commission, an official stated that they were unaware of this incident and that if at all, measures regarding the incident can be taken through the High Commission in Kenya. With the state apparatus moving at snail pace, the families of the 6 fishermen were at least able to obtain some information and advice on the course of action that should be taken in this matter through a telephone call from the International Maritime Bureau in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Today, a spokesperson from the Bureau confirmed to the special representative of the World Fisheries Solidarity that the ransom demanded for the release of the 6 fishermen could be reduced to a certain extent through discussions with the Somali pirates.
We battled for over a century to win our independence. In exactly 2 days, we will be commemorating the 64th anniversary of that hard-won independence. In the second episode of our journey to the past, to trace the path to independence, we look at some of the historic events from the year 1815.
This particular year is etched in history as one of the darkest periods faced by this country and its people. This is a period where we became helpless as a nation. Following the invasion of the last bastion, Kandy, by the British, we lost our last king to the invaders while he was seeking refuge in central Kandy. The king and queen, who became captives of the British, were exiled to India after being detained at this very place in Colombo Fort. This is the Magul Madua in Kandy. It is at this place in 1815 that this country officially became a colony of Britain. 2nd of March 1815 is considered the day on which the Kandyan Convention was signed. Governor Robert Brownrigg signed the convention on behalf of the British, while Rothelers, including Disave Molligoda and Disave Pilimatalawa, signed the document at the Magul Madua on behalf of the Sinhalese. The convention took away the right to the crown of the Nayakkars, including Sri Vikama Rajasingha, and it placed the destiny of the Kandyan kingdom in the hands of the King of England. Subsequently, John Doyley was appointed as the permanent representative to Kandy to carry out administrative work on behalf of the British, and he moved into the King's palace. Incidentally, he was instrumental in paving the way for British troops to enter the Kandyan territory, which other foreign powers were unable to do. This came about through the shrewd tactics of the British, who took advantage of the dispute that existed between Ahalapola and Molligoda, who both aspired to high positions to bring the curtain down on the Kandyan rule.
When we look at the manner in which the British acted after 1815, we can understand that rather than a government where both parties coordinate, what was established was a government which highlighted the authority of the British.
Tomorrow we feature the first uprising seeking freedom that took place in Uba Wellassa.
Now, there is another development with regard to the Slim Nielsen People's Award ceremony, which is currently being held in Colombo. Sirasa FM won the award for the best radio station of the year at the awards ceremony. Earlier, our sister channel, Sirasa TV, was adjudged the Youth TV channel of the year.
Alavi Maulana assumed duties as the governor of the Western Province for the third consecutive time today.
Several ruling party as well as opposition politicians were present at the occasion. Meanwhile, Rohana Abeyratne assumed duties as the new Postmaster General at an auspicious time today. A group including Minister of Posts, Jeevan Kumaratunga, was present at the ceremony.
You're with News First. Let me tell you a story about what's happening elsewhere in the country. Janaka Prabhat, the brother of the chairman of the Kulonava Urban Council, Ravindra Udayashanta, has been abducted by a group this morning. According to police media spokesperson Ajit Rohana, he had been abducted in the Mithuramulla area by a group of individuals who had arrived in a van.
Janaka Prabhat has been abducted near the Pothuvel Kumbura area in Mithuramulla, where garbage is disposed. The police stated that according to information received, 6 individuals who had arrived in a van had carried out the abduction.
Janaka was eating at this place. Then a white van came and obstructed his van. They took him inside and around 6 of them assaulted him and took him away.
They told us not to inform the police. They asked from me whether I have a phone and I said no. They then went on saying not to inform the police. 31-year-old Janaka Prabhat is a father of 1. He was residing in Orgodavatta. He is my 4th son. People are allowed to collect scrap metal at the garbage disposal. He and around 4 others engaged in this task and they sell it and share the earnings. Nobody takes him inside because he is a very stubborn person. However, he doesn't harm anyone.
I think this has been carried out to tarnish my image and to take revenge. We do not welcome him home and he has been distanced from the family. I have informed high-ranking officers including the police OIC about the incident.
The police media spokesperson noted that the Valampitiya police has launched investigations based on a complaint that had been received.
Still in local news, measures were taken today to cull the entire poultry stock at the farm in Bingiriya, Kurunegala, where a low pathogenic avian influenza virus was detected. Director of the Department of Animal Production and Health, Kumara De Silva, said the culling was carried out after obtaining a court order.
Many fowls were reported dead in a farm located in the Bingiriya area in Kurunegala over the past few days. Nearly 5,000 fowls were being reared at this farm. The Department of Animal Production and Health commenced investigations into this incident yesterday. Measures were taken today to obtain nearly 2,000 blood samples from fowls reared in farms located in the Bingiriya area. The blood samples were sent to the Veterinary Research Institute in Peradeniya, while 200 samples were inspected yesterday. Director of the Department of Animal Production and Health, Kumara De Silva, said that it was confirmed that the fowls at the farm in Bingiriya had died after contracting the H5N2 virus, or a low pathogenic avian influenza virus. Kumara De Silva noted that the fowls at the farm were culled in order to prevent the virus from developing into a highly pathogenic avian influenza virus, also known as bird flu.
We are continuing the experiments. We have broadened vaccination of animals. What we can see now is that the pathogen for the influenza, it is less serious. However, we are destroying these animals due to the reason that someday it might develop to be the pathogen of the influenza and not because it might infect humans.
Meanwhile, the customs at the Bandaranaike International Airport has seized 8 birds while being smuggled into the country. A customs official said 4 wild ducks and 4 parakeets had been detected. Customs also stated that these birds are valued at 800,000 rupees. The birds were smuggled in from Bangkok by a resident of Colombo. Will the smuggling of foreign animals, especially birds, pose a threat to the animals in the country?
Even if birds are imported from a country which does not have the influenza, we will prohibit it and send the birds back to that country. Sri Lanka was not affected by this disease because we took such serious measures.